So we're here at Cannes with the global head of whiskey at Diageo, David Gates. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
How does Diageo look at digital right now? Digital, you know, in a lot of ways, some of your very high-end whiskey brands, it seems almost a contradiction. Digital is something that's mass public, and many of these brands are more exclusive. How do you rectify that contradiction?
Well, I mean, let me talk specifically about Johnny Walker, because I think that talking about one specific brand rather than across a category might be more interesting. But Johnny Walker has a reputation for making huge, big, epic TV advertising. It's a kind of an advertising tradition that goes back 12 years with the Keep Walking campaign. And the way that we see digital within the construct of Keep Walking is kind of along the spectrum of epic and intimate. So we still see a role for big, epic communications, you know, the big advertising.
The one-way broadcast.
Absolutely. You know, there is still a role for that. But where we see digital playing a part is getting intimate, is getting personal, is getting private, is actually being able to kind of, I guess, touch the soul of consumers in a very different kind of way. So we can inspire through our communication, through the big epic advertising. But the intimacy that digital provides us and the social provides us, we think allows us to get that much more personal, that much more kind of close and intimate with the consumers, and connect them with the brand in a way that's much deeper.
Is there a concern that that intimacy will reduce that exclusiveness, or?
No, I don't think so. I think we just see it about driving a depth of relationship. When it's interesting, you know, particularly in Asia, where what we've seen in a market like Japan, for example, was back in the kind of bubble era of 91 or 1991, we had a very strong whiskey business there. Johnny Walker was huge, Old Parr was huge, White Horse. But we didn't really build a depth of relationship with consumers. So it's quite a superficial relationship. It was whiskey equals status.
Right.
I would like some of that, please. Therefore, I will buy a whiskey brand, and there's a range of acceptable options. And we didn't really invest in developing the depth of relationship that I think we need to, and I think the digital allows us to, actually. And so when the bubble burst, what you saw was a decade or more of continual kind of category decline. So a brand like Johnny Walker now is about a tenth of the size now in Japan than it was, you know, back in the bubble era. So I think the necessity to really get depth of relationship and meaning in the brand is particularly important. I think that's quite difficult. I think that's harder to do, or we found it harder to do anyway, in parts of Asia than in other parts of the world. And I think that social and digital platforms will allow us to do that more convincingly, rather than just the big blockbuster status tag.
And what are some of the lessons that you've learned in doing this? Top tips for, you know, that deep engagement?
Oh crikey, that's a good question. I think it's all about authenticity and integrity. I think wherever you try and be something that we're not, either as a brand or as a category, I think consumers can sniff through artifice. Actually, I mean, interestingly, if I'm talking about top tips in digital social space, just one that's very fresh from the conversation we were having yesterday as we were exploring mobile. So I think we at Diageo feel that we haven't embraced mobile technology in the way that we might have done. We spent yesterday morning actually going through all of our mobile apps and using them as consumers would use them, which is something actually I'd really recommend that any client does.
How was it?
Deeply disappointing, actually. Disappointing partly from a functional perspective. You go,
why would I do that?
I'm bored. This is just taking too long. Or is my eyesight really that bad? I can't read it. So there's some real functional stuff, and you kind of go, but that's so obvious. How could you possibly let that happen? You know, maybe we are alone, but I suspect most of there are a number of your clients actually where it would be quite a frightening wake-up call, which is use the applications that you are expecting your consumers to interact with, and just see what the user experience is like.
Right, because maybe there's a sense that we need to do the bright, shiny thing. Let's make that app, and nobody tries it out.
Well, so we, as a marketing leadership team at Diageo yesterday, have said we will not create any more apps unless you get an MLT sign-off, marketing leadership team sign-off, because I think people have just been making them because they're the new shiny thing. Right. And I mean, you know, our perspective was there needs to be utility for them to work. The two or three that we felt proud of had a purpose, was really adding value to the consumer. Whereas actually the ones that weren't working were ones where we were like, this is an opportunity for us to push our brand message. And you couldn't see really why any consumer would actually want to use it. So I think we have a commitment to really step change how we use mobile, but actually part of that is about stopping some of the more expensive, less value-adding kind of pieces of work.
Right. So focus on the ones, focus more attention on a fewer number of
Absolutely,
projects.
yeah.
We're here in Cannes. Why? Why are you here? Why are you here? The clients were not here just a few years ago. Is this the first time?
No, we're here last year.
So second year you're here.
Yeah, and I think it's about part of our role as a marketing leadership team. Part of our role heading up whiskey is about creative standards, and I think increasingly in a world where there is so much media available and there's so many marketing messages. There's no room for mediocrity anymore. I mean, frankly, I spent an hour watching TV advertising upstairs, and you go, there's a sea of mediocrity still, actually, even here.
Right.
And I think you just go, there's no room for bland anymore. And so, if we're talking about standards and raising standards, actually knowing what great looks like is important. And it's quite easy in your own little insular world to kind of feel satisfied and happy with what you're producing. And then sometimes you kind of come away and you look at it within the broader context, and here's a great place to be, to see what excellence truly looks like. And so it's things like you kind of come away going, we need to take more risks, we need to be more dissatisfied. Mediocre is just the enemy of success. And it's so easy to talk yourself into, and mediocrity may be harsh, because you go, it's good, a lot of work is good, so the films were good, but I can't remember them.
What is something you remember? What was a striking thing for you?
The best piece of work I've seen was actually, there's a bit of work done with MoFilm. So again, which is quite interesting in terms of kind of crowdsourcing and a new way of producing great content. And it's a beautiful, beautiful bit of work done for Unilever. So on their campaign for Real Beauty, statistic, I think it's only 6% of women consider themselves beautiful. And one of their filmmakers just kind of went out, very real, got this 9-year-old boy, 10-year-old boy to go up to women unsuspected on the street and just kind of say, you look really beautiful today. And obviously through long lens, whatever, they were capturing the reaction of the women.
Right.
And it was just such a visceral, emotional, wonderful kind of piece of work where these women just felt brilliant and really touched, and you saw lower lips trembling. And I think what was interesting, I think the work I've seen that I have found superb has managed to capture real, raw human emotion. And so it's quite interesting, some of the kind of more staged, artificial pieces of kind of traditional advertising, they're still powerful and they work. But actually the stuff that I've personally been inspired by has been actually lower budget, which is kind of irrelevant but helpful. But there's a reality to it.
Maybe through force of necessity, they've had to do that, and it's brought out this authenticity.
Yeah, and so that's been superb. So we're here for standard setting, for creative inspiration, and obviously there's an element of
digital. Any digital ones that have stood out for you?
Actually, no. Today we're doing mobile. We're doing a lot more digital today. Actually, so we've got a session with YouTube. So today's really the focus. Up till now, actually, I've been most of the work I've seen has been kind of more of a broadcast nature.
Right. We'll have to check in later for that.
Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Okay. Perfect. Not too much background.